Just be yourself is the most dangerous piece of advice anyone's ever disguised as kindness. And the fact that we hand it out like Halloween candy to people in the most vulnerable moments of their lives is honestly one of the wildest things we've collectively agreed to do as a species. Think about it. When does someone tell you to just be yourself? It's never when you're crushing it. Nobody walks up to you mid-victory and goes, "Hey, just be yourself." No. They say it when you're sweating through your shirt before a job interview, when you're about to walk into a first date and your brain is doing that thing where it cycles through every embarrassing thing you've ever said since the 4th grade, when you're already spiraling. And into that spiral, someone just casually tosses a grenade wrapped in a greeting card and calls it advice. The problem isn't that being yourself is bad. The problem is that just be yourself assumes you know who that is. And buddy, most of us have no idea. That's not a dig. That's just how brains work. Psychologists have this concept called the introspection illusion, which is a fancy way of saying your brain is absolutely convinced it understands itself while simultaneously being wrong about almost everything. You think you know why you like what you like, why you do what you do, why you said that weird thing at the party that still haunts you at 3 a.m. But researchers actually put this to the test, because of course they did, and found that when people are asked to explain their own preferences and decisions, they basically just make stuff up on the spot and then believe it. Your brain writes fan fiction about itself and then treats it like a documentary. So when someone says, "just be yourself," they're essentially telling you to perform a character that even you haven't fully read the script for. It's like being told to freestyle in a language you half remember from high school. Okay, but here's where it gets actually dark. Just be yourself doesn't just fail as advice, it actively backfires. There's a phenomenon in psychology called authentic self-expression bias, and it basically means that when people believe they're being their true selves, they stop monitoring their behavior, which sounds great in theory. In practice, it means they get meaner, more impulsive, less considerate. Some researcher out there genuinely spent grant money tracking this and found that people who were primed to be authentic were significantly more likely to say rude things, interrupt others, and dismiss feedback. Because if this is the real me, then anyone who has a problem with it is just not accepting me for who I am, right? It turns self-awareness into a brick wall. You stop growing because growth requires admitting the current version of you might need updates. And just be yourself tells you the current version is the finished product. It's like releasing software with 17 bugs and calling it a feature. And that's not even the unhinged part. The unhinged part is what just be yourself does to your nervous system in high-stakes moments. Your amygdala, basically the fire alarm in your brain that never learned the difference between a real fire and burnt toast, is already going haywire when you're anxious. Cortisol, your body's panic juice, is flooding your system. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles rational thought and not saying stupid things, is getting elbowed out of the driver's seat. And in that moment, someone tells you to relax and just be yourself, which your brain interprets as one more thing to perform correctly. Now you're not just anxious about the interview or the date. You're anxious about whether your anxiety is making you not yourself enough. It's a feedback loop tenser than texting your landlord, "Hey, quick question," with no follow-up. You're performing authenticity, which is a paradox that would make a philosopher's head explode, and it would deserve to. Which brings us to the thing nobody told you about what actually works instead. And it's almost stupidly simple, which is probably why nobody packages it into a motivational poster. Researchers found that people perform better, connect better, and feel less anxious when they focus on being their ideal self rather than their authentic self. Not fake, not a persona, just the version of you that you're actively trying to become. The distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. When you aim for your authentic self, you're looking backward. Who have I been? What are my patterns? What feels familiar? When you aim for your ideal self, you're looking forward. Who do I want to be in this room, in this conversation, in this moment? One is a cage dressed up as freedom. The other is actually free. It's the difference between saying, "I'm just not a morning person," for the rest of your life, and saying, "I haven't been a morning person yet, but today I set an alarm, and I'm going to be tired and annoyed, but I'm going to do it anyway." One of those people stays the same, the other one gets somewhere. Here's the concrete thing you can do with this, and I mean literally tonight. Next time you're walking into something that scares you, a conversation, an interview, a room full of strangers, whatever. Don't ask yourself, how do I just be me right now? Ask yourself, what would the version of me I actually respect do in this situation? That's it. That tiny reframe shifts your brain from performance mode to intention mode. Your prefrontal cortex gets to stay in the driver's seat because you've given it a direction instead of a riddle. You're not pretending to be someone else, you're just picking which version of you shows up. Because here's what nobody mentions. You're a different person with your best friend than you are with your boss, than you are with your mom, than you are at 2 a.m. alone with your phone. None of those are fake. You've got like 14 different characters on your roster, and just be yourself tells you to pick one and commit, which is honestly the worst possible strategy. It's like going to a buffet and someone telling you to just eat the one thing that truly represents you as a person. No, try the weird stuff. Grab a plate you wouldn't normally grab. That's where the interesting version of you lives. And real quick, because this connects to something that broke my brain a little when I first heard it, there's a concept in philosophy called existential authenticity. And it basically says that you're not born with a self. You build one, continuously, every day. The real you isn't something you discover, like a fossil buried under years of social conditioning. It's something you construct, like a house that never stops being renovated. The foundation's there, sure, but you're adding rooms, knocking down walls, occasionally setting something on fire by accident and rebuilding. Sartre had this whole thing about it. He called it radical freedom, and it terrified him, which honestly tracks because the idea that you're responsible for constantly choosing who you are is way heavier than just coasting on whatever personality you defaulted into at 19. So, yeah, just be yourself isn't wisdom. It's a thought-terminating cliché wearing a really convincing disguise. It sounds warm and accepting, but what it's really saying is, stop trying. And that's advice you'd never take in literally any other area of your life. Nobody walks into a gym and goes, I'm just going to be my authentic body. No, you showed up because you want a different body. That's the whole point. The best version of you isn't the one you already are. It's the one you haven't finished building yet. And the person who told you to just be yourself probably hasn't updated their own software in years. Ask me how I know.